Hello, I'm here to drop in for day 36 of our Panchakarma. And tonight I wanted to talk to you about the throat chakra, Vishuddha. I've been noticing a lot, if you tune in on YouTube and you watch the readers, a lot of us have been talking about throat chakra blockage. And it is something that's been coming up so much in recent months, big time. This sense of having the voice held back. And I went out tonight and I was just really enjoying the flow of the fall season. We got a storm brewing, all the storm clouds were gathering, the wind was really picking up, and there was that cold bite in the air. And I noticed when I came back from my walk that my throat felt really hoarse, very dry and depleted. And this is what happens at this time of year because Vata is aggravated by cold and dry guna, and having a hoarse voice or irritation of the vocal cords, that is the domain of Vata. That is a sign of Vata depletion. And I started thinking about the correlation of this piece, right? Mind, body, spirit is all interconnected in Ayurveda. So I started thinking, well, how often do we take care of our vocal cords? Like, we don't. I mean, if you're a singer, I know as a singer, I'll be mindful of it, but I don't usually think of it in relation to just like the shifts in the weather or as I've been doing a lot lately. I've been talking a lot lately. I've been making a lot of these videos, and I've been working with more clients, giving more readings, doing more personals, which requires me to use my voice a lot. And I've been doing a lot of public speaking and, all of these things. So my voice has gotten a lot of use. And it sort of brought forward an interesting piece for me. And first, the piece about we don't really care for our vocal cords. It's like self-care that's often ignored, and yet it's so vital because it's really important that we're able to use our voices, right? This is so important. And then I also thought about how that's an interesting reflection on how we value our voices. How much do we place value on the words that we have to share, on how we bring our voice forward in the world? I'm going kind of like a rabbit hole dive with this, but just stick with me. It was a really interesting insight that came forward. I mean, we see this about just certain parts of our body that we kind of take for granted. We don't really pay attention to how much our body does for us, like our feet. You never really appreciate your feet, right? Until you deal with something like plantar fasciitis, and then you're limping around, and then you really realize how important it is that your feet feel their best. Well, this is the same thing with our vocal cords. We just kind of take it for granted that we have a voice. We don't understand how powerful that is, that we have a voice, how that's something that we should, nurture and nourish and preserve, that we have this voice that we can use. Like, thoughts are things, but they don't actually become things until we use our voices to speak them into existence, and that starts the chain of manifestation. So this is actually a very alchemical juncture in the energy body, and we don't really give it any care. And I thought, wouldn't it be cool to bring in this piece in Panchakarma? Because normally there's just like so much focus on the heart, right? So much focus on the heart in the final week of Panchakarma. It's about softening and opening and moving into that heart space where you can really connect with that feeling, that fullness of ojas and the compassion and love. It's beautiful, but the heart is a bridge. It's a bridge between the upper and lower channels. And one thing that is so important, especially as we're moving through the different energies that are in play right now in this lunar cycle and with relationships front and center, is how we're communicating, how we're using our words, how are we showing up, and just bringing in the piece of receiving. Can you really receive if you're always talking as well? And how important it is to have these moments where you can tune within and Just be quiet. Just listen. How important that is when we're showing up in our communications, when we're sitting across from somebody that maybe we're going through a healing process with, we're struggling with, and how we show up in that conversation, not to just listen for the sake of, getting our chance to respond, but really sink in to hearing what's being said, and hearing from a different place of receptivity, where it's about really listening and leaning in with our hearts, and how important it would be to also respond from our hearts. And really simple way to do that is just when you're talking, just put your hands on your heart. Just try it with me right now, just sitting there. Just put your hands on your heart. Do you notice how different that feels to put your hands on your heart? Maybe just close your eyes for a moment and tune within and just listen to your heart. It just softens. It softens your whole presence when you connect like this. And it also softens the communication. I just thought this was like such a beautiful piece to come in. One aspect that a lot of people don't really look at when it comes to the throat chakra, Vishuddha, because I think most of the time people think just about the communication piece, being able to speak, being able to vocalize, being able to sing, being able to yell, being able to whisper, using our voices in so many different ways. It's a form of expression for us, but what people don't often recognize is that it's not just expression, it's also the expression of our purpose, because Vishuddha is all about connecting with our purpose too. And how it's really important that your purpose is in alignment with your heart. So these two pieces are actually really vitally connected. Heart chakra, anahata, throat chakra, Vishuddha. And this is the piece that we need to bridge to move those throat chakra blockages out of the way. We got to connect it to the heart. We got to bring some love and some nurturing into this energy center in our bodies. And I thought, how cool. Let's bring in some Ayurveda for this. So it made me think of simple things that you can do to start to really tend to the vocal cords. One thing that came through was gargling with warm ghee. It's just such a simple way to really deeply nourish your vocal cords, to soothe any depletion in the vocal cords, to gargle with warm ghee. It would really make a big difference. Another thing you can do is make up a cinnamon sludge, okay? And you can add this cinnamon sludge to your chais, to your golden milks. You can stir it in your oatmeal, in your quinoa porridge. There's really no limit to how you can use it. You can stew up some apples and you can drizzle the cinnamon sludge on top. It is delicious, and cinnamon is a demulcent, so it gets this real viscous kind of quality to it, almost like a slippery quality, kind of like slippery elm. And it just puts this nice soothing coating over the vocal cords. You could use throat coat tea too, but this cinnamon sludge is a nice piece of Ayurveda that was taught to me, and I want to pass it on to all of you. So to make this cinnamon sludge, what you do is you can get like a mason jar, or you can get just a glass. It doesn't matter. It's only going to sit overnight. And you get about an inch, okay? About an inch of dry powdered cinnamon. And you put that in the jar or your glass first, okay? An inch high. And then you pour purified water over the top of it. Do not stir it. Do not shake it. Just pour it over the top, fill up the glass. And then you can either put on a lid or put a plate over your cup if you're using a cup. You let it sit overnight. And then the next morning when you get up, you just pour the excess water off, and what you're left with is this real kind of thick, viscous, sludgy cinnamon syrup. And you can just add it to your food, add it to your warm beverages, and it will give you that same throat coat effect as you get with slippery elm, which slippery elm is great, but it doesn't necessarily taste as pleasant unless you get like a throat coat tea. It's nice. Slippery elm is really nice in like a throat coat tea blend. So that's another thing that you can bring in. But I like the cinnamon sludge because it's so versatile and it's yummy. It's warming, it's sweet and warming, and it's very Vata specific. It's also really great for your digestion. And if you have any issues with any kind of like permeability in your gut, you know, because you have excess acidity, maybe you've dealt with a lot of like heartburn or acid reflux kind of issues, then it could be really good for you because it sort of provides this like soothing coating over the stomach lining, and it's got those digestive enzymes and it helps balance your blood sugar. Like there's so many wonderful things that cinnamon does, and it is very, very Vata specific. You know, cinnamon is sweet and it's warming, which just makes it ideal for pacifying Vata. So, you know, you bring in all of these balancing elements at one time in just such a simple way, but gives that nice, like soothing coating for the throat. And then bringing in more of those warm, nourishing beverages, you know, getting in your golden milk and really make it nice and rich and yummy. You know, put a couple scoops of coconut cream in there. Really make a nice, nourishing, good quality fats, you know, creamy golden milk would just be lovely, you know, and so soothing for the vocal cords. And then I thought about Louisa Teach and how she had said, no matter what you're dealing with or how challenging it may be, it can always be made better by just like rubbing a little cream on it. And I thought about this piece of like real old school Ayurveda that was passed down to me in oral tradition. I want to pass it on to you all. And it's a very special drink. It's a drink that is only made one time a year, and that is on full moon after the fall equinox. And we got a full moon coming up on October 25th. And this drink involves cream. And I don't know, it just clicked something for me. And I thought, what a beautiful ritual to bring in some real roots Ayurveda that can, you know, rub some cream on it, rub some cream on this issue with the throat chakra, the blockage of the throat chakra, which is all about our need to really bridge our hearts with our communication and our purpose with our communication, using our voices in purposeful, impactful ways that are fueled by that energy of open-hearted love, you know, bringing more of that, speaking more of that into existence. How we need so much tempering right now, especially in the areas of communication. You know that. Tune in on social media. Look at how people have been talking to each other. There's so much division. There's so much anger. There's so much aggression, you know, and there's so much of a need for us to bring soothing into this area, to bring understanding to this area, to soften this area, to open this area, to just clear all of the resistance out. And it's like that same need we have with our heart, you know, and what we're working on in Panchakarma as we come to a close here, just softening the heart, finding that point of release, of letting go, of opening, because we can't receive until we open. And it's the same thing with our throats, with our vocal cords, with our you know, throat chakra. We can't receive the communication that we need, the guidance that we need. We can't receive if we're always in a place of being active. If we're always talking, then our words can stop having power, because our words aren't coming from a place of mindfulness of their value, the weight of them. And it's a really interesting piece. So I'm going to teach you how to make this special drink, and you don't have to do this, but if you choose to do it, I think you're really going to find a tremendous benefit of it. It's for building ojas. It really potently builds the ojas, and they say that if you prepare this drink, that you will not get sick. You will not get sick all through cold and flu season. And I'll tell you, every time I prepared it, I've not gotten sick all season. So it definitely like builds the immunity. It's a building drink. It's a nourishing drink. And it's like internally rubbing some cream on it because it works with cream. So what you do is you get a copper vessel. This part is very important. It's important that it's copper. And since we don't have full moon until the 25th, you have some time to get your hands on a copper vessel. You get a copper vessel, you get 1 cup of cream, make it really good, high quality cream, okay? Pure cream, like full on the full fat stuff. There is no substitution. There's no vegan substitution. And nut milk is not going to do the same thing. It's just not. It has to be cream, okay? So you're welcome to experiment, but it's not going to have the same effect as working with cream, okay? You get a cup of cream, and then you get a pinch of saffron. You put a pinch of saffron in there and make it like real, good quality saffron. There's a pinch of saffron and a pinch of cardamom in there, okay? And you can do a little bit of rose water, pure rose water, food grade rose water if you wanted, and make it extra special. But you don't have to. The main thing is the saffron, the cardamom, the cream, okay? And the copper vessel. And then you take this outside and you put some kind of screen over it so no bugs get in it, no dirt gets in it. And you leave it out under the full moon to charge under the full moon all through the night. And then the next morning you get your cream and you heat it on the stove and you drink it. You drink the whole thing. And this builds ojas very rapidly in the body. And it's pretty amazing. It's pretty amazing. I've been amazed by the effect that it's had when I've worked with it. And it's just such a quick way to really build up that nectar of life, that sense of vitality in yourself. And it helps you move through this season of cold and flus, feeling quite robust. It's pretty amazing what it does for the immune system. So I encourage you to work with that. But also, it's like you're rubbing some cream internally on those vocal cords. It's gotta be nourishing for Vishuddha, for the throat chakra. And it's funny to me, I've never thought of this piece. It's like I think about it in so many other respects, but we've been talking so much about throat chakra blockages, all over YouTube. We've talked about it, been talking to friends about it, and they're experiencing the same things. And it's interesting. It's interesting. And I never thought about vocal cord care. Of course, maybe we should do something around that. So I really wanted to bring this piece in because I think it's significant and I think it can make a big difference. So play with this a bit. And I also encourage you as you move through these last days of Panchakarma, just experiment with talking less. Experiment with listening more, and just see what comes forward. See what you notice. I'd be curious to hear what you notice. I'm going to work with it too. It's a little challenging because so much of my work involves using my voice right now. But I think that I'm going to be doing what I can to make more space, to kind of be quiet, kind of be internalized, and maybe even, electronic communication, maybe just kind of like pulling back for these last few days of our time together and just doing more of this kind of internal internal sinking in and just noticing what's being communicated on the more subtle levels that maybe I'm missing. Maybe you're missing some communication too. Maybe there's some misconnections there. So interesting piece that came forward, but yeah, it felt like it needed to be brought in. And now I'm going to go ahead and tune out and tune in for the night, because I gotta let these vocal cords rest up a bit, and I will drop in with y'all tomorrow.